let's call the meeting to order. It's 6:12. Apologize again. First item on the agenda is the agenda review. I need to add one item to the agenda, and that would be considered item 7F, and it's district van purchase. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all. So you probably figured it out when you read the agenda, but I really want the board to get to know each other just a little bit. So I'm going to ask you all to go around and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, something you want us, you're dying for us to know. And I'm just going to look at my Hollywood Squares and pick the first person I see, which is Alicia Sawyer.
That's why I don't turn my video on, man. So my name's Alicia Sawyer. I live in St. Albans City. I have internet issues and I often turn my video off when I get garbly. So I apologize if you ever see me do that. My husband Chip and I live here with our 3 boys, Liam, Andrew, and Teddy. They're 17, oh my gosh, almost 17, 13, and 10. And Liam just got his driver's license and I'm having a hard time with that. So that's what's going on for me right now.
Thank you. Joanna.
Hi there, my name's Joanna Jerose and I live in Fairfield. And my husband Brian and I live here with our 2 daughters, Maya and Lucy. Maya's a senior at BFA and Lucy is a 7th grader at Fairfield School. And I also work in a school. I'm a school social worker and I work for Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union.
Thank you. Nina.
Good evening. My name's Nina Hunsaker. I live in St. Albans Town with my husband, my 3 daughters, Peyton, Paige, Pacey. They're one's in high school, 8th grade and 4th grade. And two large dogs. Been on the school board over 10 years now and looking forward to this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina. Peter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Delaurier. I've lived in St. Albans for 68 years. I taught at the city school for 42 years. I was mayor for 12 years. I was on the city council before that for 6 years. All in all, including this one, I've run for office 9 times, and this last one was the most contentious one I've ever been involved in. I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad to be part of the board.
Thanks, Peter. Al.
19 years in radio, 29 years teaching, 15 years on the school board. I'm getting old.
Thanks, Al. Let's see. Grant.
Grant Henderson. I'm represent the town. I'm an engineer. I work here in St. Albans, and I'm BFA graduate. I'm more of a consumer of education than I've ever been a provider or administrator of education.
You're no longer, we're not hearing you anymore. Grant, can't hear you. Yo, Grant. Oh, geez. I'm sure that was all really interesting.
Oh, you don't get to hear it again. Sorry.
Grant, we didn't hear any of that last part. You got to do it over, please.
Wow. All right. I don't know where to start. So I don't know if you caught the part. I'm an engineer. I've been a consumer of education, but I haven't taught or administered education very much, and that's kind of my experience there in terms of board experience. Within the community, I like to coach, and I've been on the planning commission previously for the town.
Thanks, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I missing here? Help me.
Katie.
Katie. Katie, please.
I'm Katie Messier. I have lived in St. Albans for 41 years. I have 3 children, twin, almost 9-year-olds, and a almost 7-year-old. I've been in education for most of my adult life. And this is the first time I've ever run for a board. And again, I'm excited just to learn from everybody and do my best to represent everybody.
Thank you, Katie. Susan.
So I'm Susan Cassidy at Magnan. I live in Fairfield. When the wind blows, the power goes out. And really, my internet is in and out a lot of the time. I'm an occupational therapist at Northwestern Medical Center. I grew up in St. Albans. I left for quite a while and moved back to Vermont quite a while ago. And this is my second term on the Maple Run Unified School Board. That's it.
Thanks, Susan. Okay, thank you all for doing that. Who else are missing? Jack's not here tonight. You all got an email from Jack, so you understand he's under the weather a bit. I guess we can move on to Pledge of Allegiance. So please all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And get up. All right, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right. We're at the visitor section of our agenda, and a couple of things. If any visitors want to speak to any of the items on the agenda, including the SRO presentation, which is an interim report from our SRO committee, this would be the time that you would speak to that. And also, I really want to limit the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat, and I feel obligated to read anything that's in the chat out loud. So if we can just try to minimize chatting, and if you have something to say, just say it out. I'm already looking that we have 3 chats in here. So if somebody, all about not being able to hear Grant. So that's good. That's good. If someone wishes to speak, can they type their first and last name into the chat session now? And you can speak in the visitor section related to any of the agenda items. So I'm not seeing anyone type anything. So seeing nothing, it's kind of going once, going twice. I guess we have no visitor commentary tonight. All right. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And the first, well, their only item on the consent agenda is to approve those minutes. Does anyone have any objections to accepting the consent agenda? Yes, Joanna.
I don't have an objective. I think I just want to clarify something. What I saw on there is something about classroom locations. And if it was what I brought up, I was talking about cohort equity, not classroom locations. So I'm not sure if you were representing what I said, but I just wanted to get clarification on that.
You're talking about in the minutes?
I'm talking about on the consent agenda, what you wrote.
I got to see what you're talking about.
I can read it.
Yes, please. You can do that.
Yep, I'm going for it. Hold on a second.
I've got too many devices and notes
It's
going.
okay. It's okay. So it said public comments at board policy. The last meeting has comments to the board concerning class location and sports at SACS.
Right, so that was actually not related to your commentary. That was related to one of the questions that the Mayor Tim Smith had brought up related to, I think, basketball practicing in the city school gymnasium.
Okay,
So,
okay,
all set. So,
thank you.
yep, so any issues with the consent agenda?
I've got an issue with another item on the minutes, please. First page, line 25, where it talks about electing the board, electing yourself and vice chair. Could we just put in that there was abstention, just so that all of the voters are accounted for in the minutes? And it simply says that there were 3 for Jack, 3.5 for Nina, and then it doesn't mention any abstentions. And the number that it says should add up to the total number of people at the meeting. And one other thing, and that is drop down to line 30, elect board clerk Nilda Hunsucker. It seems like you can't be both places. So it needs to be, it would be Nina instead of Nilda.
Right. Okay, so are you okay with us
Actually,
making,
Alicia.
are you okay with us making those changes and then approving them, or would you like to see the minutes again?
No, I'm fine with that. If everyone else is okay with that, I'm fine with that.
I think that technically I wasn't voting last week. So
Right.
even though I was present, my half vote doesn't count.
Right.
Your half vote wasn't counted. We only had 7.5 people voting. last
Okay.
time.
All right.
So you didn't vote and Jack did not vote. And you were a half a vote. So the math works as for people present, but we can add the abstentions. That probably should be part of the record anyway. I always try to state it if I have that info. So, all right, so we're going to accept the consent agenda with those changes. All right, we're up to item 7, old business. We're going to have a COVID update. Dr. Dearth.
Good evening, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. A few things on COVID. I'm sure you all well know that Franklin County is still a little bit of a hotbed of action with COVID-related cases. We're hoping to see that drop, but right now there's still quite a few in the county. In Maple Run, we're doing okay at the moment. As has been true throughout, we've had times where we've had to quarantine a class, bring them back in, etc. We've had 3 people as of this week with COVID. Presently, we don't have any classes quarantining or schools quarantining or teams quarantining. And again, it's been in and out. Last week, we did have a class in Fairfield and I believe in town also. But right now we're okay moving forward. So I continue to hope that as people get vaccinated, it will continue to improve. Speaking of vaccinations, as I think probably everyone knows, the governor has made the decision that educators now are in the midst of getting vaccinated. That's been happening throughout the state. We haven't had any sites open here at Maple Run up to this point. A lot of the southern part of the state had. Much of that had to do with allocations of vaccinations. They didn't have enough. So, but that doesn't mean a lot of our educators haven't already been vaccinated or started the process. They've just been going south. I talked to some people today who went to Burlington or South Burlington to do it. We do have 3 clinics presently scheduled at Collins Pearly for vaccinations of educators. 1 on Friday and 2 next week, Thursday and Friday. All 3 of them are being run by the National Guard, not the Department of Health. Interestingly, they're using different vaccines. So Friday this week is a Johnson & Johnson, which means those who have signed up for this Friday only have to have the one shot. And Thursday and Friday next week is Pfizer. So they do have to then come back 3 weeks later and have the other shot. And all of that has to do with, I'm told, through, again, allocations. As soon as they get it in from the feds, they're then able to schedule and go ahead forward. So it's moving ahead. I'm hoping within a month, we're gonna have every educator who wants it all vaccinated, at least their first vaccination, which certainly will help at least people feel a little bit better as we move forward. The other thing I just wanted to mention a little bit, I'm gonna put this on, I'm gonna ask Bill to actually handle it. I alluded to this the last time. The state has us working on, the whole state, working on what they're calling recovery plans, which are plans that we have to put together, teams we have to put together to start the process of recovery and what that's going to look like and how we're going to do it and how we're going to work with curriculum and change curriculum to work with our students as we move forward, what that process will be. And it's a pretty extensive plan. We've already started having to put things into the state. I know Monday we started the process by telling the state how we were gonna start moving forward with the numbers of people that we wanted on a committee and the like, and then there are incrementally other things we have to do. So having said that, Bill, what would you want to add just so they understand where we are and where the board will be apprised of things?
Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin. It's great just to give a really brief update, and if the board would like more, I can do that at a later date, maybe mid-April would be a good time because we'll have more work. We had our first meeting today of the district level team, and there are teams at each school. The state has required that they're actually not requiring action plans anymore because of the work around recovery. They're requiring data sets that we provide and that we use those to make a recovery plan is their terminology. We're trying to look for a little better terminology than that. And we have a team that's made up at the district level of teachers and administrators and central office administrators. And they'll be working closely with their school level teams and we'll be coordinated. It's actually a pretty fast timeline. We had to name our team on Monday. We have to have a needs assessment done by April 15th, and we have to have a plan done by June 1st and start implementing it on June 1st. This goes along with the ESSER funds that we're receiving. So I'm in charge of, assuming the duties of the curriculum director this year, I'm in charge of the consolidated federal grants, which is usually how action plans are required. They've been changed to a new name in the past couple of years called continuous improvement plans. But those have all been put on hold based on the recovery planning. And we're hearing more and more through the state that that's the direction they want us to go. And as I said, I'd be glad to update the board later on and where we're at. We just had our first meeting today, went terrific. Peter actually asked me how my day was going when we first signed on. And I think he could tell you I was pretty much beaming about it because it was a great meeting.
Thanks, Bill. Do you have is it too early to say when we maybe could bring a presentation to the board to start talking about?
Well, I was thinking we could do an update in April, the second meeting in April, on where we're at, a short update, but then a presentation of our plan probably the second week in May, but we may still be finalizing that. It might have to be the first meeting in June. Because we have to, it's due June 1st to the AOE. But I know we could do a report. You know, my suggestion would be the second meeting in April and the second meeting in May, we could do an update as where we're at and share with the board our process. We're also working with outside community partners as well. They're on our committee. We have 2 of them right now. And I know there'll be other community partners we work with. It's just we're trying to make it's that sweet spot of not being too big so you can get the work done, but inclusive enough so you get everyone to the table.
Thanks,
Who are
Bill.
you working with in the community, Bill?
NCSS and hopefully DCF.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Are any other questions for either Bill or myself? Grant?
Yeah. Do you have teachers that are choosing not to be vaccinated? And if so, are you going to manage those classrooms differently moving forward, assuming that the state guidelines are going to become less restrictive?
Well, somewhat the short answer on that, Grant, is we can't ask them questions. So my assumption is that there may be, but right now we don't know who they would be. Because this is voluntary vaccinations.
So where does the rule come from that says you can't ask? Is that a state law?
It's, as we understand it, it's part of HIPAA.
Okay.
So, from what I am seeing and the number of emails and anxiety-ridden people out there making sure that we get the clinics, I'm seeing a pretty significant number that want that vaccination and will fight for a spot.
Thanks.
23.7 Vermonters have received at least their first vaccine. Over 10% are fully vaccinated. I'm one of them. Just before we move on to the next agenda item, just a housekeeping thing. Apparently, when we want to record all the votes, including the abstentions, we have to do a roll call vote. So the way we did the vote at the last meeting, we didn't do a roll call vote. So therefore, that's why the abstentions were not recorded. In the future, when we do have abstentions, we can do a roll call vote. So that's all documented, because I do agree with you, Peter, that it should be documented. And apparently the minutes that were in the final packet that we had were corrected with Nina's correct name. So one of the things that you'll find, especially you new board members, is sometimes additional items get added to your packet. So you get an email from Brenda that says, click here to get your information. So you have all those PDF files of all information. Every once in a while, things will get updated. So it's good to check that, periodically to see if anything's been either added or updated. She usually sends an email when she makes a significant add, but anyway, the final document apparently had Nina's name corrected. So I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you, Nick.
Sure. The second item here that we need to discuss in old business, although it doesn't seem that old, is we're having an interim SRO committee update tonight. And we have the co-chairs of the study committee, Shannon Trainer and John Nichols, who are going to do a presentation for us as to where they're at right now. I'm going to let them get through their presentation, and then if the board has any questions, they'll be able to ask those questions. I gave visitors an opportunity to ask questions and make comments at the beginning, so we're going to restrict the questions to specifically the board members. So Shannon and John, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to chair this committee, co-chair this committee, and I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Trainer, and I am the co-chair for the SRO committee, along with John, as Nilda had said. I'm also a parent of a second grader at SATEC, so that was part of the reason why I wanted to be on this committee as well. So we thank you guys for having us tonight. We want to give you a progress report update for us. So thus far, we've held 3 committee meetings, and one of them was a public comment that really left a lot of us not feeling so good. So we definitely had to restructure some of the chat comments so that it was much more constructive. So we're learning as we go. We're also learning that we're not going to make everybody happy, but we have a job to do that the board has asked us to do. So in that being said, we've decided to break up all of the information because there's so much information. We decided to break it up into 3 groups. And those 3 groups consist of the history of the SRO program, what the SRO currently looks like, what present day it is, and then future SROs, what those may look like in the schools, if that is what the board decides to do to keep them in the schools. We did this because we wanted to have a good solid base for understanding why the SRO program was started in our district, and just to get a good foundation of it. So I do have to say, we haven't really gotten into like the meat of everything. The subgroups have met, and they've really have done a lot of work thus far. Our meeting is the 24th of this, next meeting is the 24th of this month, and we will hear from the history group. So we will have that information starting there. There is a lot of information, as you all know. There's a lot of data out there, so it took a lot to organize this data and to figure out where it goes and what type of data we wanted, and to make sure that we really, the data had a peer review group as well. So it wasn't just somebody single writing this report. So that we wanted to make sure that we really had everything complete. Our T's were crossed and our I's were dotted on that. John, feel free to interject wherever you might want to.
Thank you. No, we do have all of the, the subgroups that we've broken the committee into to study those different aspects of the SRO program. Each group has a series of questions that we've asked them to answer in their presentation to our committee. We can send those to you all. I guess, and then the other thing that we've done is we have, Shannon and I have reached out to a couple other school boards who have recently done investigations into their own SRO programs, just to generally ask questions about process, what went well in their process, what might they do differently. I believe we've heard back from 2 so far with some interesting ideas. A lot of our work thus far has been focused on making sure that our process is as thorough and inclusive as we can make it, so that when we do make our final presentation and recommendation to you all, we really have solid foundation to stand on. Shannon touched on that as well, but I just wanted to echo that.
We're happy to answer any questions you may have as well, and feedback from you. I know there's a few people that have sat in on our meetings as well. And like I said, we're happy to answer anything you have. And if there's something specific you want to make sure that we touch on, we would love to hear that as well.
Thank you. Shannon, you mentioned 3 buckets and I only took down 2, history and the future. What was the third?
The middle one is the present.
Oh,
Yep, what it presently looks like. So we found that there's a lot of work into this. Like John said, there's a lot of organization. We really needed those first few meetings to kind of get ourselves together and to figure out what direction we wanted to go in. Emma is our facilitator and she's been wonderful. She is very, you guys did a wonderful job of picking her. She is middle of the road and she corrals us in, and it's great to be able to bounce ideas off each other, even if it's 9 o'clock at night. We're able to do that as well. So, and John and I we also set up a way for the SRO or for people in the community to get in touch with us. And so we have an email address that people can send in personal statements. John and I have also made ourselves available to anybody who wants to anonymously give a statement to us, because not everybody is comfortable sharing that information, or, putting themselves out there, but they do want to be heard. So we've done that as well. Also, we found that the BFA students, or the high school students, we didn't have a grasp. We didn't reach out to them enough. And so we have 2 high school students on our committee that we're going to have them be able to help facilitate that as well, to be able to include them, because we really feel that their voice needs to be heard. So that's one challenge that we had, was getting out to the community, that we needed feedback from them.
who are your high school students?
We have Leah and Connor. I can't remember their last names. I'm sorry about that. But they really have stepped up, and they really do have a voice, which is great to hear that as well. So they did give us a lot of information on how to get in touch with the high school students. And so that's one of the steps that we have to complete as well. So we wanted to make sure that we heard from them, and then actually sending out, I think we had talked about, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but sending out to the parents as well, just a feedback, a survey from them as well.
So I didn't realize that Leah and Connor were the students, but it's Leah Fitzgerald and Connor
Powell, maybe?
Powell.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
And John, you were talking about the process and you said you wanted to make sure it was thorough, and I missed the second part.
Oh, inclusive.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
had down, but want to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
of
you.
course.
I had a question. So the 3 buckets you had, it's Nina, sorry, up in the left-hand corner here. You have the 3 buckets, the history of the SRO, currently what it looks like and what it will look like in the future. Are those all geared toward what, toward our community, like within St. Albans?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we really focused in on as well. We know that there's a lot of data out there from nationwide, but Vermont, we wanted to really focus in on Vermont, and we know that that bucket of data is very small here, but we really feel like our community, we need to focus in on our community and what was happening in Vermont. So that's one of the things that we did focus in on a lot.
Thank you. And also too, are you finding the data that does pertain to our community as well in Vermont? Are you finding you're able to find it, I guess, as opposed to, I know that there's a big data pool out there from bigger universities. I mean, again, I just want to make sure, we got to look at how it impacts us too. I'm not saying they're irrelevant, but I just would like to be more focused on, how that impacts our community and, our folks here.
Definitely. That is, it is a little bit of a tightrope walk, right? Because national data is plentiful. And while, Vermont is, we are somewhat different, of course, we're not immune to national data trends.
Right.
So that's really why in the little subgroups that we've broken into in studying, a lot of what we're getting is, we're getting a lot of anecdotal data and information from the community, because that's frankly just what is most readily available. And, we're trying to be as objective as possible in weighing those 2 sets and giving appropriate weight, I guess, to each set, I would say.
I'm really glad that you said that, John, because that was something that I noticed. I've attended the meetings or I've watched them afterwards, and what I'm finding is a lot of anecdotal information. And I hope that we are going to be looking at data, whether it be statewide data. We could do comparisons, right, about national data, then statewide data, or regional data, then statewide data, and then community as well. But it will be important for the board to hear hard evidence, hard data, and not just anecdotal information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shannon and John?
Can I just say thank you for your work and the work of the entire committee? Just appreciate the work and the time you guys are putting in.
Most welcome.
Yes, we are happy to do this. I mean, it's been a challenge. John and I know that. We've had to regroup a couple times, but it's definitely work that we need to do, and our kids and we all need to feel safe here. And this is just, I find it very important, because I mean, we have children here as well, and we want to raise them in a community where everyone is inclusive.
Thank you.
I know I had a nice conversation with Emma last week, and I think that she's going to manage the chat a little more tightly. We've gotten a lot of input from the state of Vermont as to whether you should even have chats at public meetings, and the rules are pretty loose still. But everyone says you have to manage it. You know, we just can't let people say things in a chat that they can't say in person. And so she recognizes that that's part of her role, and certainly will, you know, do a better job. We don't want anybody to leave the committee or anything, because there's so much time that's been invested so far that to start over would just be sort of, you know, like,
Yeah.
So we appreciate all the time and energy. You guys both sound very passionate about what you're doing, and that's great to hear. So we look forward to, you know,
No,
follow up.
no, the,
Yes,
can I
please.
just say one thing?
Sure.
Shannon, I just want to make sure that that it's somewhere. I know, you know, there was a lot going on. I just want to make sure that it's known that it is a public forum. Anyone can be there. I understand, you know, on behalf of Grant, he's very respectful. He's always been respectful on these things. I just want to make sure that people know that he is allowed to be there, and you guys aren't going to catch flack for it, and Grant's not going to catch flack for it.
Katie, do you mean Paul Talley?
Yeah, that's sorry.
Okay,
Yes, Paul.
sorry. Grant's shaking his head.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, I meant Paul.
so
I was looking at Grant, unfortunately. Hi, Grant.
so no, that's one of the things we did talk about, that everyone is welcome. It is a public meeting. And it would be no different than if we were meeting in person. And there are things that we can do. And that's part of the reason why we said, you know, like John and I are available outside of the meeting if people don't feel comfortable in that space. So that's why we really developed different ways to be able to get in touch with the board and still have their voice heard. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Shannon.
And it's also important, that's, I support that wholeheartedly. That's another reason why the anecdotal information should not be what we base our decisions on.
Mhm.
That's not what lawmakers base their decisions on when they decide whether or not, you know, same-sex marriage can happen. It's supposed to be based on data and on fairness and equity and justice. So it's just really important that we're using the data.
Thank you. I just thought of something. It's probably a dumb question, but is there a list of the supervisory unions or whatever they're called in the state of Vermont that have SROs versus those that do not? Or is that something someone would have to like research and compile?
I'm not sure on that. So, I mean, we certainly we can look at some of those. I know some of them have gotten rid of the SRO program. And some of it was not actually even due to, like I was reading with, like Montpelier was one of the school districts that we had reached out to, and theirs was financial. It was a big financial thing. It had nothing to do with interaction with students.
Right.
So for them, it was a different decision. So, I mean, there's certainly, if you'd like us to, I'm happy to look into that and compile a list for you, because there's not that many districts either.
Yeah, well, I don't want to cause a lot of extra work.
No, that's okay.
It would be interesting to see the list, and if they had, you know, if they had SROs, do they still have SROs? Did they discontinue, and what the reason was for the discontinuation?
Okay.
That would be concrete data, at least that. And then, you know, we would have people we could talk to also if we wanted to.
Mhm. And we do have, you know, John and I had reached out to, there's 4 school districts. It was, John, correct me if I'm wrong, Milton, CVU, Winooski, and Burlington.
It was Montpelier, I think.
Montpelier, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Montpelier. That's what I just, sorry, I just said that. But Montpelier sent us a very comprehensive list. It was really great on how they organized everything. Winooski is my other one, I believe I had, John, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so they've reached out back, she's reached back out to me, and she said anything that we need from them, they're happy to help with that as well. It's nice to actually talk to somebody, you know, that they've already met, and they've made their decision on what things that, like John had said, things that they had done, things that they wouldn't do again, you know, things that were helpful. and really just honing in on how we can attain this goal.
Thank you. And you all understand that your recommendation could be anywhere from keep them, get rid of them, and anything in between, right? You understand that there's all kinds of continuity to whatever your recommendation is. All right, any more questions for Shannon and John? Again, thank you for all the work that you're doing. We look forward to our future report. And if you have anything you need, don't hesitate to contact me. I guess I'm Emma's new contact because Jeff Morrell left us. So, so if you need something, you can go through her and come to me, or just contact me directly. We'll do what we can to support. All right.
Okay.
Most welcome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very
tonight.
much.
Thank you.
John, Shannon.
And you're welcome to stay, but if you have to leave, we will not be insulted. All right. So next item on the agenda is to elect a Collins Pearly board rep. So I guess we forgot to do that somehow at the last meeting, or it wasn't on the list. I'm not quite sure which. And I know that, just for background for people who don't know, Al Corey has done this forever. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Al, but I need to open nominations for a representative from the Maple Run Unified School District to the Collins Pearly Board. So may I please have nominations if anyone has any?
I nominate Al Corey.
I was going to nominate you, Al, but that's okay. I'll second that for you, Al. Anyone else interested? Okay, so I'm going to pull an Al. Hearing none, let the clerk cast one vote for Al Corey as the Collins Pearly Board rep from the Maple Run Unified School District. Thank you, Al, for your service.
Thank you for allowing me to continue.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics review. So, not to put anybody on the spot, but I think Susan and Jack were the two people that did not get a chance to review that at the last meeting. And I just wanted to make sure that at least Susan, that, you know, first of all, you did get sworn in, right? And second of all, that you've had the opportunity to review the Code of Ethics. And I don't think we need any kind of motion or anything. I think just the fact that we're having this discussion will memorialize the fact that Susan is agreeable to the Code of Ethics review.
I did get sworn in and I did review the Code of Ethics.
Well, thank you so much for that attestation.
You're very welcome.
Anyway, moving on to public comment at board policy. So that's just there for me to remember to tell you all that at the next meeting, we're gonna review two policies: the public complaint about personnel and the public participation at board meetings. But just as an interim measure, if anybody comes to you and has a complaint, let's try to direct them up the food chain from when you set the table all the way up. Okay, so start at if it's a complaint about a teacher, you start with trying to talk to the teacher, and then you go to their supervisor, and then you go to their supervisor, and you go to their supervisor. So things, by the time something comes to the board level, it should have been escalated pretty much. And I'm paraphrasing two policies really quickly here, but we'll talk about them and get educated about them in depth at the next meeting.
Nilda, quick question.
Yes.
What if it's not about a person? What if it's a complaint about a system or event?
I predicted that you were going to ask that question.
So you have an answer.
No, when Kevin and I talked about this earlier, I made the same observation. Well, what if it's not about personnel? You know, what if it's about, and, you know, I guess you could track it back. Any issue you could probably track back to a person that made a decision to cause that issue to occur. So if someone were to complain about you know, I don't know, the bus driver didn't stop at the stop sign. Well, who hired the bus driver? Well, who hired the, you know, blah, blah, blah. You can, it's like asking those 5 whys till you get to the point of the person that's really the person. So I guess that's my non-answer to that question, Grant.
Okay. Will we decide on an answer as a board to that question?
We certainly can talk about it. I mean,
Okay.
one of the things that we can do when we look at those policies is if we deem that something needs to be looked at or revised or edited or whatever, we send that through the cycle, right, of that process. We can't do that at the meeting, but we can make the decision that we want to review those policies or edit those policies.
And Grant,
Okay.
if I get a complaint and I'm not sure, I reach
Yeah.
out to the chair of the board and to Kevin, and I say, this is the complaint, please direct me with who I should send this to. So if you don't know, that's a good way to start, I think, too.
Thank you, Alicia. Yep, definitely.
And what I would say is, we don't necessarily need to know about personnel issues. I do think we, as a board, need to have a good understanding of what system issues are in play or not working well in terms of systems.
Right. And, you know, the other piece of this, and we're going to do an orientation for new board members and Grant, because we identified that the new board members plus Grant never went through it because Grant came on board right during COVID. So we'll talk about a lot of those things, but, you know, we're all sort of part of a group now. And so things, you know, we all have our own personal opinions, but one of the things we have to remember is we're representing our constituents and we're representative of the board, and have to be careful that when we say something, somebody's going to say, oh, they're on the board, they're representing the board. And sometimes that's not always the case. So we'll get into that a little more detail later, but that's kind of enough about that. Unless anybody pushes me for more. Thank you.
I'm going to push slightly, Nilda. Just that when you say later, do you mean later tonight or do you mean later in general?
The next meeting. It's on.
Got it.
It's under the agenda items for next meetings.
That's the review that you're talking about. Okay, good.
Yes, next meeting. Yep.
I'd like to just maybe mention one other thing, kind of to piggyback on Alicia. Most systems are operations, and operations are your hired people to take care of. So the answer would be, if it's a system or an operation you're not sure who that would go to, then I'm your employee, and you send them to me, and I could certainly then make sure it gets to the right person.
Right.
But I would be that first line.
Yep. Thank you. That's a good point. Kevin does triage. All right, we're up to item 7F, district van purchase. Bill, I think you're tagged for this.
I am. I talked about it last time, and thank you, Nilda, for adding it to the agenda. Last time we talked about the need to add another van to the district's fleet of vans, and that it was for primarily use over at SATEC, but it would be a district van for district use. We're seeing increased need. We have a lot of extra expense. I know Angela has some figures on that of what we're spending per week for different student individual travel. And maybe Angela, you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Right now it's about just under 500 a week, just for kind of taking care of one need. And we also are currently either our social worker or counselors delivering meals to some families that don't have transportation. And so we're reimbursing mileage for that. So between that and also, we also have situations where children miss the bus and either their parents don't have a vehicle or their parents are gone, and we don't have any way of picking them up and getting them to school. Also, students that need to go home that are sick, similar situations. So the need has definitely grown, and we can see just probably in the cost of 1 week, we would cover the van for a month. And then we could also expand other opportunities in other areas, there's just a greater need right now, and it would be very helpful. We're trying right now, we've been borrowing some of the other vans, but it adds a lot of time and it takes away the use of the van in the other schools. So we're really struggling with that right now. So the additional vehicle would really support our students and families and help us get kids to school that need that service.
Thanks, Angela. So last time, as I reviewed, the state of Vermont has a state contract with Alderman Chevrolet, and they can provide a Toyota Sienna van. So that's what we're looking at right now. It's an all-wheel drive. We get some snow tires with it as well for the wintertime. And, you know, it's about $35,000 once we get it all situated with everything that it needs. We're looking for since this is a purchase over 25,000, we need the board authorization for that, and it's under the state contract. So I know that's why we've come back to you to look for board authorization. And I'll take any more questions, but I know I covered it last time as well, so I just don't know what I need to repeat.
Bill, have you thought of going locally?
We'd have to go back out to an RFP, and when we look at the local price, it's almost $20,000 higher because the state contracts get them pretty low.
Is there any opportunity for any grant to cover any of this?
No, this would be from savings that we've had in transportation this year because of COVID.
Okay. I didn't know if some of the things you described as need could be covered under like a Medicaid grant or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we have other uses for Medicaid right now.
Just a question. Okay. So you're looking for action tonight, right?
Yes, we need a board approval for this because of the policy for purchasing.
So let's get a motion in a second on the table, and then we can have additional discussion. Can I have a motion, please? Do I have to?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? What's our motion saying?
That we're authorizing the district MRUSD to purchase a van for SATEC, but also still will be used district-wide. I don't know. And the purchase price of $35,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want the price in the motion? What if it came to $35,500?
I'm just saying what I heard.
Is that a fixed figure?
It's not exactly fixed. It may be plus or minus a little bit. So I would suggest not having the
that's fine
price in there.
Yeah.
To purchase for the Maple Run Unified School District to purchase a van.
So
Should we say under the state contract?
That would be good. You guys all agree to those changes in the motions, the maker and the seconder?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Joanna?
So now we can ask questions?
Sure.
That's how, okay. So Bill, we had asked last time if you could let us know who else has vans in the district, how many there are, where they're being used.
Yeah, we have Northwest Tech Center and we have SATEC have vans. They each have
How
one,
many?
I believe it's one at each location.
I'm sorry.
Saks has one,
yeah,
and Northwest Tech Center has one.
Okay. And we've looked at trying to utilize that van.
We've been working on that
not
for 3 or 4 months, and it's getting into conflicts left and right. And when we look at the cost we keep going with outside contractors, and the cost is just exponential compared to what we can do ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
As Angela said, it's almost the cost. I mean, we can, if we were to lease it or to purchase it, I mean, lease it or put it on loan, the weekly cost is a monthly cost of that.
Okay.
Right. Well, if you have one student, that's $500 a week transportation. It's not going to take too long to make even a very expensive monthly payment saving.
Yeah, and we can do it out of the transportation savings that we've had this year due to COVID. So it just makes sense.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, I think 9 unanimously. Jack is not here, so we have 9 votes. All right, next item on the agenda is new business, administrator salary. We're going to go into executive session to discuss this. We don't need a finding because it is covered under the open meeting law, under the evaluation of a public office or employee. So we'll move on to 8B, and that is to amend the extracurricular and co-curricular guidelines. Bill, I think this is you again.
It is. Last August, we brought to the board, as we do every August, to approve the extracurricular and co-curricular guidelines. Early this fall, within those guidelines are pay rates for referees that we contract with outside the district. It's currently set at $75. The Vermont Principals Association somewhere this fall raised it to $85. And so we're not paying the same as other schools, and it can make it hard to get referees. So since the board approved it, Kevin and I and Martha were talking, we thought it was appropriate to bring it back to the board to make amendment to that approval. So we're asking you to raise it by $10 a game.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none? Oh,
No,
Grant?
quickly. I just want to let you know, I don't currently referee, but I've been asked to enough times and I've given enough consideration that I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay. Now you're putting me in a position where I have to do a roll call vote.
Sorry.
Now I have to go figure out who my roll people are. Okay. We're going to do a roll call vote if all the discussion is over regarding this motion. Al?
Yay.
Grant's abstaining. Alicia?
Yay.
Peter?
Yay.
Katie?
Yay.
Nina?
Yay.
Joanna?
Yay.
Susan?
Yay.
Nilda, yay. Okay, so motion carries 8-0, 8 with 1 abstention. That's how you say that. Thank you, Grant, for that little exercise.
Keeping you on
Okay.
your toes.
Yeah.
Okay, other business. We have, excuse me? Okay, we have the warrants. Need a motion to approve the warrants, please.
You approve the warrants as printed, and the authorization from us verbally will signify as written, and Brenda will write it out because I can't see it.
Okay, is there a second?
Joanna.
Joanna, thank you. Any discussion? As I mentioned at the last meeting, if folks have any questions about any of the expenditures as you're looking at your packet and preparing, you can contact Martha, and if she doesn't have the answer, she'll research it and get back to you individually. Or you can bring the question to the meeting and get an answer collectively. But just wanted to give you that opportunity because it's a lot of money and a lot of warrants, and it's hard to get used to those figures. All right, we need all in favor of the approving the warrant signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, motion carries 9 unanimous. All right, next item is agenda items for future meeting. I have the 2 policies that I mentioned earlier. Any other items for future meetings, folks? We will have those reports that Bill and Kevin were talking about that need to be presented to the state by June 1st. The COVID recovery plan or whatever it's called. We'll get a report on that. I've also talked to Kevin about making sure that we have implicit bias training. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look at like yet, but the equity committee is giving a report to the leadership team on, I think, April 1st, Kevin said. So after he gets that report, there'll be a little bit more info on that. Joanna.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we've been receiving a lot of equity training from Rebecca Haslam, and it has been wonderful. So I'd be happy to give information to Kevin or whomever is responsible if they would like to look at her work. It's been really great.
Thank you. You can forward that to Kevin and Bill, and Elise will have that info.
She is wonderful, and we use her too.
Okay, great.
Oh, yep. Alexis just indicated that
Yep.
she's doing training for us as well. So
great.
Thank
Nelda,
you.
can I ask?
Yes.
a question? Just, I know you brought this up at the last meeting, but if we could make at least a goal for when we talk about our 5-year plans, as well as the IT study, I'd like to have a timeline for when we're going to bring those up.
Okay.
Nilda, I had a couple things too, but if you
Okay, so the IT plan, we need to get, I'm just writing it down. We'll put it on the list and get a timeline. And then the 5-year plan, I think Kevin and I had a discussion about that today also. And I think this COVID recovery plan is going to be issued first, and that's going to give us more of a status of where we're at. And then we can do the 5-year plan after that, because there's some stuff on the 5-year plan that's just sort of in limbo right now because of everything else that's happening with COVID. And some of it is complete. So there might be new things on the action steps that get developed because of this plan. Am I saying all that correctly, Kevin?
Yeah, basically the recovery plan, when it's done, is going to hit 80% of the 5-year plan.
Absolutely.
So
that's due June 1st. So we're going to get a presentation as close to when it's ready as makes sense too.
Right. I just want to make sure we have the conversations close enough together that we update that plan accordingly, and let's not just shelve that plan, and make sure we update it and change our course if we need to at that point. I don't want to come to it 6 months later and be like, oh, we did
this. Yep, I agree with you. Nina, what did you have?
I know we had talked about the retreat too. Maybe start discussions on the dates, because I know we had talked about keeping the dates on the books for the summertime. So maybe using one of those dates on a Wednesday night or something, or Wednesday to have the retreat, and just really start talking about the agenda and some stuff we'd like to see on that.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? Oh, and I know I might just started to hear some, questions of how graduation is going to start looking. I know it's early, but I just figured I'd put it out there to see if we can, if their graduations are going to look like as last year, or just start having that information sent out or socialized out if and when ready, sooner than later. It's just a couple things if possible.
There is a meeting on March 30th for seniors. So that is in the works.
Okay.
They're on top of that.
Yeah, I know the elementary schools too for 8th grades. And
so part of my real job has been to listen to the governor, and twice a week for 2 hours. And he did say the other day that he's expecting the Vermont to open up on July 4th. Okay, so we're going to hold him to that. So maybe we can have a retreat sometime this summer in person. With
that would be great.
With
if we could all get vaccinated
with adult beverages and adult food.
That's Kool-Aid and cookies. Come on.
But thank you all for this. We're going to keep this running on the agenda. I'm going to ask Brenda to sort of keep them on the agenda until we move them into the agenda as future items, so we don't lose them. Okay.
Thanks, Nilda.
And I think we have gotten through our agenda, so we need to have a motion to go in. Do we need a motion to go into executive session anymore? Let's have a motion to go into executive session to discuss administrators' salaries.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who's coming in with us, Nilda?
We're going to bring Kevin, and Bill, and the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any abstentions or nays? Okay, so thank you all.